Comic Book Savant, episode 380. Welcome back to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This episode is going to be a full spoiler review of Deadpool 2. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the movie at this point, I would advise you to stop the podcast, walk away, check out the movie. Once you've seen the movie, go back and listen to this, and then you'll be able to enjoy it without any spoilers. If you want to actually see a non-spoiler review of the movie, you can stop over to the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Comic Book Savant, and I currently have a non-spoiler version of the review for Deadpool 2 listed there. So if you're still on the fence and you're thinking about seeing the movie, then you're more, definitely stop by there, check out the non-spoiler review of the movie, and then after you've seen the movie, come check this out. Or if you just don't care about spoilers, then sit back, relax, and enjoy, because we're going to go deep into the crux of the movie and all that ins and outs. So definitely you can sit back and enjoy. With all that being said, let me give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. You can find them over at comicspodcast.com. That's a great place to go if you like what I do here and you want more of it. It's hundreds of different podcasts listed there. It's like a cool little consortium or alliance of comic book podcasters that come together, and we have like a landing page that you can just, all our fans can go there and find more related content. They're all comic book related podcasts and different shows. They have them based on publishers, individual characters, teams. It's broken into so many different genres, so you can definitely take some time, search the site, and find more good comic book related content based on any of your particular interests. So if you have a moment, stop by comicspodcast.com and check out the site. And if you do find a show and creator you like, also remember, always take a moment. If you check out a show that you found there and you enjoy it, reach out to the creator of that show and let them know, hey, I found you through this podcast. They sent me here. I really enjoy your content. And tell them what you like about their content. It always helps a creator to hear from new listeners, to let them know what they think about their content, because it helps them improve it and it encourages them as well. So definitely take a moment to do that if you are so inclined. And last but not least, I have to give a shout out to my sponsor for this episode, which is InStockTrades.com. One of the best places you're going to go online when it comes to collected editions of any sort, or special editions, omnibuses or omnibuy, Marvel Masterworks, you name it, they have it. If it's a bound collected edition of any sort, you pretty much find it over at InStockTrades.com. They have discounts ranging from 35%, 42% up to 50% off. If you're a U.S.-based customer and you place an order of $50 or more, you get free shipping within the U.S. That's only for U.S.-based customers. If you happen to listen to this and you're outside of the U.S., you still get all the great savings, and they have some of the most competitive international shipping rates around. So definitely is something that is worth checking out. You can save a ton of money. So I'd like to thank them for their continued support of the show. With all that out of the way, let's jump into this review of Deadpool 2. We have David Lynch as the director. We had Tim Miller directing Deadpool 1. We had David Lynch coming on to direct Deadpool 2. He's most notably known for, he's recently had Atomic Blonde. He was one of the two, he was a co-director on the first John Wick movie. This movie was written by Drew Goddard, Rhett Reese, and Paul Wernick. And the breakdown is as follows. After surviving a near fatal bovine attack, a disfigured cafeteria chef, Wade Wilson, struggles to fulfill his dream of becoming Mayberry's hottest bartender, while also learning to cope with his lost sense of taste, searching to regain his spice for life, as well as a flux capacitor. Wade must battle ninjas, the Yakuza. Well, you know what I mean. And the pack of sexually aggressive canines as he journeys around the world to discover the importance of family, friendship, and flavor, finding a new taste for adventure and earning the coveted coffee mug title of World's Best Lover. So we have back in the cast, we have Ryan Reynolds back in the driver's seat as Wade Wilson in Deadpool. We have T.J. Miller back as Weasel. We have Leslie Uggams back as Blind Al. Marina Baccarin back as Vanessa. Stefan Kopiec back as Colossus. Josh Brolin as Cable. Zazie Beetz as Domino. Brianna Hillenbrand back as Negasonic Teenage Warhead. And Julian Dennison as Russell. This movie is definitely, everything's amped up. You definitely have a bigger budget than what we came from the first Deadpool movie. It was such a huge hit and made a ton of money for Fox. They definitely put some money behind this movie. I think the first movie had like a $50 million budget. I think this one had double. I think it had like $100. I was just seeing a graphic about it. And they definitely put that money to good use, as far as it was more action scenes. David Lynch, if you're unfamiliar with him, he had a long historic career as a stunt man. Then he moved up to a stunt coordinator, worked on all the biggest films, and it all culminated to him and his partner, stunt coordinator partner, being the leads for John Wick. And that movie was such a success that they both have broken off, directing. His partner, stunt coordinator partner, is I forgot his name. Chad Stahelski. So they both have broken off since John Wick and have both gone into directing. Chad has done John Wick 2 and he's filming John Wick 3. David went on from John Wick and he's done Atomic Blonde and now Deadpool, and they both have numerous projects announced, further. So you knew the action was going to be amped up and done extremely well. They both have a long catalog of movies they've worked on as stunt coordinators, all the biggest movies, going all the way back to Matrix to now. So, they were always a standard as stunt coordinators, and it just transitioned for both of them on to directing. So with a bigger budget, bringing on, this director, the action was going to be amped up. With Ryan Reynolds as executive producer, like he was in the first movie, the comedy was going to be amped up as well. And this movie was fun. It was definitely a ton of fun. For me personally, I just want to set this off right off the top. It just didn't connect with me as much as the first movie did. I think the biggest problem for me in this movie is they've started the movie off by killing off Vanessa's character. And to me, the part I loved the most about the original Deadpool movie was seeing Wade's and Vanessa's relationship. So taking her off the board so early, though we did continue to see her throughout the movie in, the other world sequences, the not flashback sequences, but the daydream kind of sequences with her in the world beyond, and Wade trying to get to her and speak with her. We saw her, pretty substantially throughout the movie, but I just felt like it wasn't the same as seeing her in the world being a part of a movie, because she was kind of like, we saw the relationship established, and then, she was the damsel in distress that he had to save. But I felt like, we know her, that Vanessa eventually turns into Copycat from the comics. I would have liked to seen her power up and actually been on the board as an ally or even an adversary, at some point, for her in the movie, not kind of like played off to the side again. because the history is there for the character. So to take her completely off the board, right off the top, kind of like immediately took me out of the movie, because I just loved their chemistry together as actors. It just clicked so well, and them on screen to me were the funniest parts in the first movie. And I even liked what I was getting, and then when it went left, I was like, it pulled me back. And like I said, from that point, I found myself less invested in the movie from that point on. I know she was a driving force in him trying to be better and trying to help Russell, but it was a double whammy because I didn't care for the Julian Dennison's Russell character. He was very grating and annoying to me. He had a few moments. I'm not saying that he wasn't a funny character, and the movie's definitely, all about the comedy. It was great cameos, and not to say I didn't laugh or wasn't entertained by the movie. It definitely was those things, but again, it's kind of like the first Deadpool movie. I liked it, but I didn't love it as much as everybody else did. I liked this movie even less than I liked the first one, based on it was a lack of likable characters for me to attach to. I like Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. I like, Maureen Baccarin as Vanessa. We were a lot of the story was focused on, Deadpool, starting to open up a little bit more and care about people. And I just didn't care about Russell. I cared about Vanessa. You know what I mean? So when you swap those out, I never could get into his character enough to really care what happened to him either way. I just didn't, He just rubbed me the wrong way, and I just was never invested in his character enough to care one way or another. I liked what they did with adding more Colossus in the movie. I think it was well done. I think this is the best treatment in Deadpool 1 and 2 that we've ever seen with the Colossus character. And he's such a huge character in the lore of the X-Men and in the comics. It was a shame that we had so many different X-Men movies, and he was always just played off as a background character with only one or two lines to say. So to see him get the spotlight, even though kind of with his connection to Deadpool and the whole, the sight gags and the homosexual tension type thing back and forth between Deadpool and him is, it's like he's more like a walking joke. But just overall, you get a better sense for the character of Colossus than you ever did in any of the X-Men movies. And in the two Deadpool movies, he's probably had more on-screen time and had more lines spoken in these two movies. So that's one thing I really enjoy about that, because I always thought Colossus was a really great character that they really dropped the ball on in the over at Fox in the original X-Men series of movies, how they totally just screwed that character up and just didn't ever use him close to his full potential. So good thing that that Ryan Reynolds saw the potential in that character to have included it and to have grown the character out within the movies. And it seems like that's going to go forward because, from the later iterations of X-Force, Cable and X-Force, Colossus is a member of the team. So it seemed like from kind of like the ending where they might be going in the future with that he's leaving the X-Men and going to be a part of Deadpool's Deadpool/Cable's X-Force team. So that's kind of cool because we've had that happen in the comics. So at least here he might be able to get some spotlight in one of the Marvel Now runs of Cable. Yeah, I think that was the book Cable and the X-Force, because I reviewed it on the YouTube channel, one of the trades for that. In that story, actually Colossus and Domino have a brief little fling there, so that would be interesting since Domino's on the board. Zazie Beetz Domino's on the board, that it might be interesting to kind of see what going forward if they explore that from those pieces from that particular comic book or not. One thing that disappointed me, because I thought they had amazing chemistry in the first movie, and she was so stunning. She's grown out to be, she was very cutesy in the first movie, but Brianna Hildebrand as Negasonic Teenage Warhead has turned out to be a beautiful young woman. And I love her chemistry with Deadpool, and they totally abandoned all of that, and they brought her back, but she was so much of an afterthought in the movie. And she's like, okay, she's gay, she has a her girlfriend, Yukio, I think her name was, and I thought it was hilarious every time she saw Wade, like, hi Wade, hi Yukio. That was so like corny but funny at the same time, that every time they saw each other they did that. But Negasonic just was not used at all. Like, they had that one scene where she's trying to talk to Russell, and and it's like the whole, he uses his powers on her, she kind of bounces back and whatnot. But she was really utterly useless. Like, they could have cut her out the movie. That's how unimpactful her scenes were in the movie. Which is sad, because I thought her and Ryan Reynolds had really great chemistry, and I wanted to see more of them going back and forth, and her being more established as a hero now. Like seeing them fight side by side with one another, kind of like we saw in parts at the very end of the first movie. But you can always get what you want. Again, the action scenes were more in this movie. But I think my biggest problem with the action sequences were they were good. Don't get me wrong. They just were things that I've seen before. And, I think now, because, people in the industry, not in the comic industry more so, but in the movie industry, talks about this coming thing of comic book movie fatigue. And it's not so much more that, but I think, I've always been, from my childhood, I never was into scary movies. I've always been into, sci-fi, and action movies, and we didn't have comic book movies when I was growing up. I read my comic books for that. But as far as movie going, I always was a huge action movie fan. And, because I was so scary as a kid, and probably still am now as an adult, I don't do the scary movie thing. So I didn't watch the Jasons. I was not allowed to, in my household, to watch like any horror type movies whatsoever. But my mom, and this is the weirdest thing, my mom never had a problem with me watching action movies. So me being a kid of the 80s, when action movies were kind of at their peak, it was every rated R action movie probably ever in existence that came out in the theater and or straight to video, I probably saw growing up, because that was what I lived off of. I want to see things that I haven't seen before, or shot in a visual way that I haven't seen it before. And you're going to get solid. You're never going to see like sloppy action sequences, and by far they weren't. But at this point, with so many action movies, the action genre kind of coming back right now, coupled with superhero movies and comic book movies, I wanted to see something that was going to visually pop for me, and I didn't necessarily see that in this movie. I really dug the fight between Deadpool and Cable on the convoy, as well as in the prison. It just didn't blow me away. It was like I seen that. It's like fights I've seen before. Now I loved how Josh Brolin moved as Cable, and the sound effects with his arm ramping up, and you can hear the gears in it as he's punching and he's doing different things. That was in how his gun was magnetic, and it wouldn't get too far away from him, and it would attach itself back to his back. Those were little nuances within it, but the actual fight choreography was tight as it always is. But it just was, I've seen these scenes before in other movies. That prison fight scene reminded me so much of the last Fast and Furious movie. That fight portion for so much of it. The convoy, the moving convoy thing, also from the Fast and the Furious movie before that. With the moving convoy and what we're, Solo hasn't came out yet, but we kind of see a moving train sequence, and they're trying to do a job, and they're fighting. We've seen it in Captain America, the first Captain America, the first Avenger, where they're trying to go after the Armin Zola on the train, or the Red Skull on the train, and Bucky when Bucky falls. Like, I'm just named off this many movies that had similar sequences to two of the major action set pieces in a film. That's not a good thing. And I think that is where for me the direction kind of fails with David Lynch, because this is what you do. Now that if the market is so competitive, it is not about having more money, it's how you spend that money. And you can do tricks visually, but I don't 100% fault him, because he's still new in becoming a director. He's done, if you count John Wick, Atomic Blonde, and now Deadpool 2, this is only his third film as a director. And in the first movie, he co-directed. So this is only his second film as leading the helm, like with his own show. And I just felt like it wasn't enough of visual pop to be like, God dang, like that scene was like, an action sequence in this whole movie doesn't stand out to me like that at all. And I kind of fought his direction. Like I said, I think he's a solid director. I think he's only going to get better in time as he gets more confident in the decisions that he's made. But just overall, his direction didn't wow me. Like, I'm not clamoring to see him direct Deadpool 3. I would rather see another, maybe more experienced director direct that movie. Another thing that I felt with this movie, and it maybe had to do with the pacing or the story or just my lack of interest in the characters they were trying to force you to focus on, was at times I felt myself drifting while watching the movie. And I can't say as a moviegoer, and I watch a ton of movies. You just by the number of reviews that I do on the podcast, you guys know I'm no stranger to a movie theater. I watch a ton of movies, and I can't remember, honestly, you know what? Actually, me and my best friend was just joking about this the other day. Max Payne was the last movie I can remember being like, found myself drifting, uninterested. Like, how much longer do I have in the movie? I'm ready to go. That's the first time, and I can't remember when Max Payne came out, how many years ago that's been, but that's been a long time, and that's been a lot of trips to the movie theater that I've taken to see movies that I can recall a movie left me in that kind of state where I was like checking my watch, and it didn't have me fully invested throughout the course of the full movie, and that's not a good thing. So that speaks to the direction and the story to me in the movie, and that's where the kind of the weaker parts of it. And I know that I'm getting older. I'm 42 years old, soon to be 43. I'm not the person that they're aiming their target demographic. It's a younger person. I was that demographic for the longer time. I've transitioned out of that, and it's for the younger kids. And I feel like anyone, and don't get me wrong, I feel like any and everyone will enjoy this film. It is an entertaining movie. I don't know, in it being entertaining, does that inherently make a movie good because it's entertaining? I'm going to say, for me personally, I don't think it does. I don't think the two terms are mutually exclusive. This is the first time, and and I talk about this a lot when I rate the movie, is this a must buy, a date night rental, and all that kind of stuff. It was the first time I could say with a comic book movie in a while that and me and my silent partner, aka Miss Comic Book Savant, my wife, we always have conversations about the movie. Once we leave, as soon as we leave the theater, like we go on this conversation, and I've talked about that, and a lot of it informs certain things and certain bullet points that I talk about when I record the spoiler reviews. And, we had a conversation. She loved the first Deadpool movie more than I did. And she liked Deadpool 2 way more than I did. And, I listened to, her points, and I respectfully, agree to disagree. I watch, to help inform me before I do reviews. I already know how I feel and what I'm going to say, but I also like to get, check the internet and the zeitgeist to see what, how people feel about a particular movie. And I just don't agree with a lot of people. I don't necessarily think this is a good movie. I damn sure don't think it's a great movie by any means, but a lot of people do. And I respect that. Movie doing something like what I do on this end, when you're talking about things like you're discussing and reviewing television shows, movies, comic books, cartoons, the whole nine. I review a lot of different mediums, and I'm not always going to agree with the overall masses, and I understand that, but I have a duty to you guys for if you guys like me and take the time to listen to what I say and value my opinion, to give you an honest opinion and not just go along with the consensus because it sounds good or I want to get more people to like my content. It's not about that. It's about me having integrity in the words that come out of my mouth and me being honest. So I'm going to be honest. I didn't like the movie. When I watch the movie again, maybe wouldn't go out of my way to. Will I buy the movie when it comes out on home video? Yes, because I'm stupid and I'm a completionist. I own every Star Wars movie that's been released on home video at this point. I own every Marvel movie that has been released on home video at this point. I own every DC films movie that has come out at this point. It's what I do. I'm a completionist and I have an OCD problem. My wife openly tells me this multiple times, and I know it and I accept it, so I will probably buy the movie. Will I ever watch said movie? Probably not. She will probably watch it more than I ever will, but it's what I do. But I don't particularly think it's a good movie, and I can recommend it because I think it's entertaining, and I think for anyone other than myself, I think the majority of people that watch this movie will like it. I just didn't, and I hopefully in this review I gave you very valid reasons why, because the thing that I can't stand the most, because we see it so much now in this new day and age with social media and YouTube and everything else, where people because it's a hot topic and people want clicks and people want likes, they'll go along with the consensus and say it's good, I love it. And 2 weeks later, after the hype dies down and the clicks slow down, the new hype is to start trashing something they just built up because it's old and everybody wants to see the negative now. So they do that. That's why normally once I talk about a movie, I do a non-spoiler review, a spoiler review. I give you everything I got on that subject and I move on because I'm only one person. I got to, in another week, I'll be doing another review on Solo. We got another movie. And a couple of weeks after that, we have Incredibles 2. A couple of weeks after that, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp. I got to cover all this stuff. I don't have time to linger and just to piggyback off of the wave of clicks for one movie. So I'm just going to tell you tell you how it is as far as the way I see it. You may agree with me. You may disagree with me. But you can always say that I told you the truth from my point of view, and I gave you reasons why. Because people will say they like something, but they can't tell you why they liked it. Yes, this movie's funny. Yes, I laughed. Did I laugh as much as I thought I would? No, because they showed some of the funnier parts of the movie in the trailer, so they gave it away. And when I saw it, it wasn't nearly as funny because I had seen it 100 times on all the replays of the different commercials leading up to the movie. But it was other parts that we had not seen in the trailers that I saw that made me laugh and gave me a chuckle. Was it such a side-splitting laugh fest like some people say in their reviews? No, it wasn't. Not for me. But maybe my sense of humor has changed, and it just didn't work for me like that. So I'll admit that. Another thing that I wish we had more of, like I said, I wish I would have had more Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Another thing is, I really like Josh Brolin as Cable. I still would have wished they would have gotten, what is his name? I'm seeing his name. The guy from Avatar that wanted to be in the movie. He lobbied. I actually saw him on a YouTube video, heavily lobbying. He was I will be Cable. The villain from the first Avatar movie. I'm looking it up now. What is his name? Stephen Lang. Stephen Lang was the perfect, to me, Cable. The look and the demeanor. He was perfect for the role. He was on a Collider video a year ago or something like that. And he came out and said he would love to play Cable. And then they went with Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin, he was awesome as Thanos. I thought he was really solid as Cable. I wish, because he's a really good actor, I wish they would have gave more backstory for him. I don't like the little tweaks they kind of did to Cable and had him a little bit depowered than from what he actually is in the comics. But again, he's kind of in service of Deadpool in this movie to be his be the straight man to Deadpool's comedic, over the topness. So he's the straight man to his comedy man. So, I mean, I kind of get that, but I wish they would give him a little bit more meat on the bone to work with, because we know, especially after seeing Infinity War, that Brolin can knock a character out the box if you just give him a little bit. You didn't have to give him a lot more, but like I felt like things that like that whole 9 to 5 montage at the beginning of the movie, like that, how that went on, like those were things that I felt like that could have been cut from the movie to in service of fleshing out the character of Cable more, and even maybe fleshing out Russell's character a little bit more. So I could have had some scenes there where I would have cared about him more. Maybe I felt like. And I love Ryan Reynolds, don't get me wrong. I've loved him since, I go back with him from Blade Trinity to Van Wilder to Waiting. I go back way back with Ryan Reynolds. I think too, and I've seen different interviews with Tim Miller. And Tim Miller is no joke. He's a no-nonsense guy, and he's no punk. And he's talked about in interviews the tension that he had with Ryan Reynolds in completing the first Deadpool, editing the first Deadpool, and even when they first started talks about what Deadpool 2 was going to be. And like, if you've ever seen Tim Miller, like, he's like a ripped dude, and he like trains MMA, like, he's no punk, and he has a short fuse. And he was saying, like, at times, like, he loves Ryan, but he was like, sometimes he just wanted to punch him in the face. And I feel like maybe you have someone like David Lynch just starting his directorial career, that when they parted ways with Tim Miller, they wanted someone that was going to be happy to be there and kind of go with the flow. And I feel like in that, because Ryan Reynolds is an executive producer, I felt like with some of the comedic spots and all the fourth wall breaking, especially, I loved all the different cameos they did throughout the movies, the hidden ones and the ones right in front of your face. Those were great, and those were also highlights of the movie for me as well. This was an overindulgence of a star to a point, because not enough people reined him in, and I feel like that, to me personally, hurt the movie. If they could have reined him in a little bit more, and the movie was slightly more grounded, similar to the first movie, it would have been a better overall movie. Is it going to make a ton of money? Sure. Will it make more than the first movie? Maybe, depending how it does internationally. Domestically, kind of how this murderer's row of movies were set up with Infinity War. Then you had Deadpool 2. Now you got Solo. They're going to all kind of cannibalize one another at the theater, because where they're put out in this part of the year. And then they have other little movies as counter programming to even leech even more off of what they would have had if they came out like at different points of the year. But that's kind of how cutthroat the movie business is. With Disney owning, Marvel, Disney, Pixar, Lucasfilm, we saw how Black Panther pretty much cannibalized Wrinkle in Time altogether, but, and it didn't have a critical reception when it even came out, so it even further didn't help it and made Black Panther even stronger. But Black Panther being so strong and them coming out so closely together, Wrinkle in Time never really had a chance, to be successful. It did okay, but it was no hit by any means. Was it a flop? I don't know, but it definitely wasn't as big as maybe if it came out in a more if Wrinkle in Time, it came out in January or September, even late August or September, where it's a little bit more open, where it would have been the standout in kind of that funeral time at the box office, when after all the big blockbusters come out, where it had a chance to be way more successful. With how these are lined up, I don't know if it's going to proceed Deadpool 1. I think when it's all said and done, it pretty much will be equal to, not greater than, far as the box office that it'll generate. when it's all said and done. But that's just my thoughts. I could be totally wrong on that. But what the predictions for this opening weekend was, it was a little bit under what the first Deadpool was, but it's still a ways to go. But with Solo just coming out in a week, and then 2 weeks later, The Incredibles are coming out, it's not going to have nearly as long as a tail. Like when Black Panther came out, it was like open for, like a month and a half before it had any real competition. Now it's like a week or 2 weeks, and and another big major release is coming to compete with it. And I think it is going to hurt it domestically, maybe not so much more, like I said, internationally, and that's where it could really take it over the top. But right now, I don't think it's going to overall outperform what the first Deadpool did. So my overall rating for this movie, when I break down the categories, as you guys know, my format is I look at acting, casting, direction, special effects, and story. For me, acting was like a 6 out of 10. Again, I didn't care for Julian Dennison as Russell Wilson. I thought T.J. Miller in the few scenes he was in was horrible. I don't know what was up with that. Again, I felt like at points Ryan Reynolds was on point, and at other points I felt like he was totally out of control, just like being way too over the top. He was just coming in way too hot for me. I liked Marina and the scenes that she was in. She was calming and she was like on point. I thought Josh Brolin, her, and even Zazie Beetz as Domino, even though I feel like the rendition they wrote of Domino is not the Domino from the comic books, even in a little bit, that she was serviceable and she really made it work for what they wrote. And I think that's in the writing, not her performance. And I just hate how they left Brianna Hillebrand just like on the sidelines, because she proved that she could hold her own, and they just didn't give her anything to do in the movie. So I get acting a 6 out of 10, the casting a six out of 10 as well. On some of the spots, like I said, I felt like they could have had somebody else different in the Russell role. I would have preferred Stephen Lang as Cable, but I don't think Josh Brolin was a horrible casting decision. So overall, that's a 6 out of 10. The direction, I gave you points why I felt like the direction was a little lackluster, so I gave that a 5 out of 10. The special effects, because I didn't talk about this earlier, the special effects were good and horrible. It was no like middle parts. It was parts where special effects were really like on point, like Cable, like with his arm, his virus, and like all the cool stuff when like he was repairing his guns and putting his guns together when he was like in a hotel room. All the stuff with Cable was like super tight, but it was a part in the movie where you saw Domino running with her Uzis, right? And they had like a bayonet at the front. And I swear to God, and I've probably seen too many movies in my day where I noticed this mess. It's a little thing. She's running, and you see the bayonet wobbling because it's rubber. Like I swear, I was like, is that a visual gag that they meant to leave in the movie for people like me to see, or was that just bad? I just think that was bad. The Juggernaut CGI to me just looked cartoony and bad. They kept Colossus CGI pretty much unchanged from the first movie. I didn't see any major improvements. They purposely kind of make it look comic booky and cartoony, so I accept it there. But I mean, the Juggernaut character looked totally just horrible to me. Like, wow, with that money, like, wow, it was bad. It was bad. I didn't like it. It looked really bad. It looked like something from like 3 or 4 years ago, at least, as far as technology wise, where how far they have come with like special effects. We just saw a movie where the most important character was a CGI character, and he was in like so much of the movie, and Thanos, and he was believable. So to see a character like this, like a couple of months later in a movie at this day and age, is just unexcusable to me. So special effects got a 6 out of 10. The story 6 out of 10, which overall for me, I would give the movie a 6 out of 10, which on my rating scale falls, as a red box it. Again, that's just my personal opinion. I think for most people, this movie will probably fall within that date night rental range anywhere between an 8 and a 7 for most people. Again, I don't agree with it. I really thought out, the different areas that I base my criteria on to come up with my overall rating. And that's just where I landed with it, was a 6 out of 10. I don't feel like it's the strongest movie, but I do think it's a really entertaining movie. And if you have time to go check it out at the theaters, just because of the spectacle of it all, it's definitely... I don't feel like you're going to feel like you wasted your money by going to see this at the theater. I think it's entertaining enough, and just the cameos and the comedy in it that I did enjoy was worth seeing on the big screen. The whole, you guys heard about it. I'm not going in depth about the whole X-Force being massacred thing. The Vanisher Brad Pitt thing was awesome, and I was able to catch that the first time, and I just chuckled. I thought that was really funny. But all in all, I feel like it's a good movie. I feel like this is a entertaining movie, not necessarily a good or great movie. But I understand most people will feel differently than I do on that. But that's all I have for you guys for this review. As always, check out the website, comicbooksavant.com. You can also follow me on social media at comicbooksavant. If you forget any of the links to any of the social media stuff, just go to the website, go up top, and all the links are provided for where to follow me on social media there. Also, it's links to the Patreon page if you want to consider becoming a Patreon and help support the show. You can click on there to get more information. But that's all I got for you guys for this week. I'll be back next week with another episode of Comic Book Savant, and we'll have next week another review because I will be reviewing Solo, a Star Wars story next week. So we will have that coming as well. And don't forget, if you want to see the non-spoiler review for Deadpool 2, and you want to share it with people that are on the fence about going to see it, send them over to youtube.com/Comic Book Savant to see the non-spoiler review for this movie as well. And I will see you guys next week for another episode, and you have a good week. See you soon.